So, what is structural equation modeling? It is a statistical methodology that seeks to explain the relationship among multiple variables. It takes a confirmatory, that is hypothesis testing approach, to analyze a structural theory. Structural theory which is always based on some phenomena. So, a theory represents a causal process which generates observation on multiple variables. So, there are two basic important aspects of structural equation modeling. First is the causal process among multiple variables which are represented by regression equations, and second is the structural model which is represented pictorially, so as to ensure and enable clearer conceptualization of the theory under study. So, it basically is the integration of multiple multivariate techniques that come together to form one model fit framework. It is the integration of measurement model, which is from psychology, factor analysis from psychology and statistics, path analysis, which is from epidemiology, regression from statistics, and simultaneous equations from econometrics. So, the question is, what are the research questions that SEM particularly will be suitable for addressing? SEM usually addresses complex problems, complex concepts with multifaceted constructs. For example, let's say we want to analyze the attitude of a person towards a particular activity. So, this is a complex construct. It also specifies a system of relationships rather than simply dependent and independent variable. In other traditional multivariate techniques, we either have a dependent and independent dependent variable or multiple independent variables. But here we can have multiple dependent variables also. It focuses on direct as well as indirect effects of variables on other variables. Now, by this what I mean is that, let me give you an example. For example, we want to identify the factors influencing the adoption of electric vehicles in India. So, we'll go through the literature, we'll do the literature survey and we'll identify all the factors. Let's say it's dependent on how environmentally conscious a person is, financial incentives associated with the purchase of electric vehicles, and perceived benefits. And this perceived benefits in turn is dependent on the awareness a person has related to the attributes related to the electric vehicles. So, what my aim is to make you understand that in structural equation modeling, we can have a direct effect of between two variables. See, for example, this adoption of electric vehicles in this model is our dependent variable, and perceived benefits is our independent variable. But if we'll look further, we'll see that perceived benefits is further dependent on the EV awareness. So, here in this regression equation, perceived benefits will be our dependent variable and this will be our independent variable. So, what I am saying is that the adoption of electric vehicles depend on the direct effect of perceived benefits and also indirect effect of EV awareness. I hope you got my point. Now, you will learn about the difference between latent variables and observed variables. Now, how many of you know the difference, or how many of you know what unobserved variables are? Okay. So usually what happens in behavioral science, a researcher wants to analyze theoretical concepts which often involve unobserved variables, those variables which cannot be observed directly. For example, if you want to check the attitude of a person towards a particular activity, or to check the satisfaction level or intelligence. So these abstract phenomena are called latent variables. Now when they cannot be observed directly, they cannot be measured directly. So how do you possibly measure them? So what we do is that we represent a particular construct or particular latent variable in terms of behavior believed to represent it. By that, what I mean is that, for example, I want to test the perception of my respondents towards the benefits that they think that EV adoption will bring. So how do I measure the perception of my respondents? I'll do it indirectly. I'll ask them questions about fuel efficiency, cheap maintenance, better air quality, and zero emission. So I'll get the measures of these. These will be termed as observed variables or indicators or items, and this will be termed as latent variable or unobserved variable or construct. So we'll measure this perceived benefits indirectly through our observed variables, these 4 observed variables. So this is the difference between observed variable and unobserved variable. Now, symbol notations in structural equation modeling. Usually the latent variable is represented in circular shape or ellipse, and observed items, it can be our questions that we are asking our respondents. They are usually represented by rectangular or circular shape. Covariance gives us the linear relationship between various variables. And influence path gives the influence of one variable on another variable, influence of independent variables on dependent variables. And the error term, this is the measurement error, which I'll be talking in detail in further slides. Now, exogenous variable and endogenous variable. Exogenous variables are similar like independent variables. They are caused by variables outside the model. For example, we are asking our respondents set of questions. So the fluctuation in their answers is not defined by the model. Whereas in endogenous variable, they are similar like dependent variable, and the fluctuation in dependent variable is defined by the model. They are affected by these exogenous variable. But there is a difference, there is a significant difference what we see in other multivariate analysis and structure equation modeling is that for let's say multiple regression, a variable can be either dependent variable or independent variable, but in SEM a variable can be both dependent variable as well as independent variable, like I explained earlier. Like this perceived benefit, when we see its effect on adoption of electric vehicles, here it's exogenous variable. But when we are identifying its fluctuation due to this EV awareness, then this is endogenous variable. So the significance of these arrows is that when an arrow is pointing towards a variable, it makes it an endogenous variable, and when an arrow is pointing away from the variable, it makes it exogenous variable. And
causality is
causality, yeah, yeah.
media awareness causes perceived benefits, which causes adoption.
Which causes, but we have to be very careful about these arrows. So this perceived benefits will be called mediating variable. This is a mediator. So let's talk about the simple models, simple structure models. So here, like I said, we have two latent variables. Now latent variables which we get from our observed variables, they can be both exogenous and endogenous. So here we are seeing that this is our dependent variable and this is our independent variable. So this is a simple single cause effect, and here this is two correlated causes. That means this is our endogenous variable and these two are exogenous variable. Now this is given by a covariance arrow, which means that these two variables have a linear relationship with each other, and the effect of both these variables we are checking on our dependent variable, and this is our error term. Now can you tell me which is the mediating variable in this one? X2. So we have a direct effect of x1 on x2, x1 on y, and we have indirect effect of x1 on y. So we can measure both direct effects as well as indirect effects in SEM, which is not possible in other multivariate analysis. So the effect of x on y will be equal to the effect of x on y, that is beta 2 plus beta 2 times beta 3. So that will give us the total effect of x1 on y. Error terms are associated with the endogenous. We usually use error terms on the endogenous variables. In AMOS, we usually do this analysis on AMOS. So we specify our error term on endogenous variables, which means that how much measurement error there is in our which is defining the adequacy or inadequacy between observed variables and unobserved variables. I'll be talking about that. Now, the benefits of using latent constructs. From the theoretical perspective, our concepts can be multifaceted, which means that they can have many dimensions or many meanings. So now when we are measuring this construct which is not observed directly, we need observed variables or some indicators to represent that. We cannot use just one item to represent our underlying construct. We have to use multiple items to represent our underlying construct because our concepts, our constructs are usually multidimensional. So when we give out a questionnaire to our respondent, what happens usually? For example, there is a particular question. Respondents can interpret the particular question in different ways. They can interpret in different ways. So that will lead to a measurement error. Now, what is measurement error? Measurement error is the inadequacy, which I just told, it is the inadequacy of the observed variable in measuring the related underlying factor. Now, what leads to this measurement error? There are many reasons. For example, if someone answers the questions or our questionnaire inaccurately, or if someone is unsure of his answers, or if he interprets the question in different way. And since we are using number of items to represent a particular construct, there is a natural degree of inconsistency that is associated with the abstract phenomena usually. So all of these reasons lead to the measurement error. So what structural equation modeling does, it gives us the measurement model. Measurement model gives the link between observed variables and unobserved variables. So what it does is that when a model is defined, it estimates the magnitude of this measurement error through reliability. And once we know the magnitude of this measurement error, we can then incorporate it in our statistical estimations, which is not possible in other multivariate analysis. It also gives the extent of a particular item or observed variable with the unobserved variable. It tells us how much this particular item is defining a particular construct, or to what extent a set of variables, a set of indicators are defining a particular construct, which is called reliability and validity. Other benefit is that of improving statistical estimations. So, in traditional multivariate techniques, to this point, we assumed that these measurement errors can be somehow overlooked. But what SEM does is, it actually has the ability to address the correction for these measurement errors. How it does it is, it gives us the reliability. What is the reliability? Reliability is the degree to which each variable is correlated with each other. The set of variables under a particular construct or a particular factor, it gives the intercorrelation between these among these various factors which lie under a particular construct, and it is inversely proportional to a measurement error, which means that if reliability increases, then this measurement error decreases. That means that the relation between our observed variable and unobserved variable is greater. So, according to the statistical theory, the regression coefficient is composed of two concepts, that is true structural coefficient and reliability. In multiple regression, we are often given this observed regression coefficient, but SEM gives us the true structural coefficient. And since reliability is inversely proportional to the measurement error, so it estimates the magnitude of the error that is in our model, for example, and it accounts for the measurement error and estimates what the relationship would be if there was no measurement error. So the relationship that we get in a regression model is usually weaker in presence of the measurement error, but the coefficient that we get in SEM tend to be larger than the coefficient that we get in other multivariate analysis. So in regression, simple regression or other multivariate analysis, it tends to undermine the structural coefficient due to the presence of the measurement error. And since it does not, it overlooks and it does not address this measurement error, it can lead to inaccuracies, serious inaccuracies, and particularly when that measurement error is sizable. So this is one more advantage of using structural equation modeling. So how is it different from the traditional multivariate analysis? As I already told, that it provides explicit estimates of the error variance parameters. Alternate methods assume that errors in the independent variables vanishes out. And also the former methods like regression, they only address the observed variable and not the unobserved variables. And in structural equation modeling, we can incorporate both. And also it takes a confirmatory rather than exploratory approach to data analysis. Now what is the difference between confirmatory and exploratory factor analysis?
Confirmatory, we know the causal relations. In exploratory, we relate the all coefficient, all parameters, the all relations. In the exploratory, we are exploring the thing.
Yeah.
But in the confirmatory, we assume that there is a relation and we.
So yes. So confirmatory is a hypothesis testing approach and exploratory is hypothesis generating approach. As the name suggests, in exploratory, a researcher has a big data. He does not have a prior knowledge of the underlying factors or underlying structure of his data, so he goes for exploratory analysis. The aim here is to identify the relation among various variables. It also addresses the anomalies in the data. It checks for mistakes and missing data in the data set. Whereas the confirmatory, a researcher has a prior knowledge of the underlying structure. He first postulates a model based on the literature survey that he has done, and after he postulates a model, he then goes for data collection, and then he goes for checking his hypothesis or assumptions. So this is the main difference between exploratory and confirmatory analysis. Now the factor analytic modeling. The oldest and perhaps the best approach to find the relation between observed and unobserved variable is that of factor analysis, and they are basically of two types: exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis. As I said, exploratory is data driven and confirmatory is theory driven. So there has to be a theoretical background when we are going for confirmatory factor analysis. In EFA, a researcher does not have a prior knowledge. He is exploring his data. In confirmatory, he has a prior knowledge and the underlying structure. He postulates a model, and he postulates a relation between observed and unobserved variables, and the relation between observed and unobserved variables is called measurement model. So CFA or confirmatory factor analysis is actually a measurement model. Now let's come to EFA. Exploratory factor analysis is a statistical tool used to uncover the underlying structure of large set of variables. So for example, we have maybe 30 variables or 30 questions in our questionnaire. So what we do is we go for exploratory factor analysis to reduce its dimensionality, so as to make it more logical and more easy to analyze. It serves to identify the underlying relationships between major variables and identify a set of latent variables that are shaped by these measured variables. So the link between observed and unobserved items can be found through this analysis, that is EFA. In case of EFA, latent variables represent shared variance or degree to which variables move together. To which variables move together is that the observed variables that we have, the set of observed variables that we have, how much correlated they are with each other, and how much to what extent they are defining this underlying construct. So there are basically two reasons why we go for EFA. First is to reduce the dimensionality of our questionnaire, of our data. Second is to check for multicollinearity. What multicollinearity is, that usually in our data we have variables which have huge correlation with each other, and we cannot just go for simple regression analysis because it invalidates its assumption. So in that case, we need to check for multicollinearity among the variables. So all the variables or set of variables who are highly correlated with each other come together to form one construct or one latent variable. Fitting procedure. Fitting procedures are used to estimate the factor loadings and unique variance of the model. Factor loadings are the regression coefficient between items and factors. It actually gives us the strength between a particular factor and with a particular observed variable or set of factors and underlying construct. And it all begins with the initial extraction. So how do we extract our variables? It is dependent on the eigenvalue. Eigenvalue measures the amount of variation in the total sample accounted for by each factor. So we usually go for those factors whose eigenvalue is greater than 1. And a factor's eigenvalue may be computed as the sum of the square of the factor loadings for variables. Let's see, this is our eigenvalue, and we have two factors which have eigenvalue greater than 1. So we will extract these two factors and take it for further analysis. Now the extraction method. There are three types of extraction methods: principal axis factoring, principal component, and maximum likelihood. Principal axis factoring considers only common variance, whereas principal component analysis considers all available variances. Principal axis factoring seeks least number of factors that can account for common variance of a set of variables, whereas maximum likelihood is a more robust type of extraction method. It maximizes the difference between our independent exogenous variables. Principal component analysis is most widely used in our day-to-day lives. Now, after these factors are extracted, we go for factor rotation. So what happens is that variables load onto factors at different levels, and it is usually very hard to interpret the factors that we have extracted. So a solution for this difficulty is factor rotation. It alters the pattern of the factor loadings and makes the interpretation more easy and logical. There are two types of factor rotations, orthogonal and oblique. In orthogonal, we assume that there is no correlation among our factors, that our factors are independent of each other. They do not have any correlation with each other. And rotations can be best explained by imagining factors as x's in a graph. So in orthogonal, what happens is the x's are maintained at 90 degrees. But in oblique, we permit our factors to be correlated. And x's are not restricted to 90 degree, because it tends to identify the extent to which these factors are correlated with each other. So this is unrotated x's and this is rotated x's. What it does is it makes the interpretation easy. It's used for two main reasons: to make the interpretation easy and logical. Now let's come to the results of our EFA. So once we get our factors, then we have to name each of the factor based on the factor loadings, based on the observed variable that is defining that particular factor. So here we have 4 factors. And how do we name them? We go on reading all these items which are defining this particular factor, and then we name them logically based on the factor loadings. Those with larger factor loadings are considered to be more important, or those with higher eigenvalues are considered to be more important relatively.
Factor loadings on 6 and above are negative.
Hmm?
On 6 and above, factor loadings are negative.
Yeah, 0.6.
Is there any guideline?
Usually it is we first go for communality check. In that, it has to be greater than 40%. We exclude the factors whose communality is less than 40. We do not usually take all of our items. It's a step-by-step process that is usually we eliminate our factors at the communality step only. And after exploratory factor analysis, we then move on to confirmatory factor analysis to further validate our factor loadings. So confirmatory starts with a hypothesis about how many factors there are and which item loads on which factor. A test is computed to investigate how well a hypothesized factor structure fits with the data. As I told earlier, that we first postulate our data based on the literature survey that we have done, and then we go for our data collection, and then we check how much our data is in consistency with the model that we have postulated. So if a model in CFA does not fit well, it can be altered and retested, and number of iterations can be done. The best fitting model is identified which best explains our data, our sample data. Now the full latent variable model. Structural equation modeling comprises of two models. First is measurement model and second is the structural model. So as I told earlier, that measurement model is the relationship between observed variables and unobserved variables. And structural model gives the relationship among various latent variables that we have derived after EFA and CFA. So there is a difference between this model and this model. Now structural model can be of two types. It can be it can have dependence relationship or correlational relationship. It measures the linear relationship between the two factors, and this measures the effect of one variable on other variable. A full LV model, which we can also call structural equation model, that specifies direction of cause from one direction, only from one direction, is called recursive model. Now the bar diagrams. We usually represent our causal models pictorially for clearer conceptualization of the theory under the study. So the schematic representation of models are termed path diagrams. It provides a visual portrayal of relationships which are assumed to hold among the variables under study. So this will be our measurement model, which only measures the relationship between our latent variables, and these all are our observed variables, unobserved variables and observed variables, and it allows for correlational arrows telling us the relationship between linear relationship among different variables. It is also called CFA or measurement model. And then this is our model. In this will be our measurement model, and this will be the structural model, because it's telling us the dependence of this latent variable on this variable. So if we look at this model, this is a causal process. Can you tell me how many independent and dependent variables we have in this model? Yes. Which is the mediating one? Yes. So these three are exogenous variable. Now if you'll see, there are correlational arrows which are telling us that there is correlational relation between these three exogenous variables, which also indicate that there must be one more variable which is not included in this model, a common cause of these three exogenous variables which is not included in the model. That's why we have correlated it with these arrows. It usually gives our dependence model, it makes our dependent model more reliable. If we specify that there should be or there can be correlation among our exogenous variables. Now, framework for testing structural equation models. There are three different types. First is the strictly confirmatory, in which a researcher first postulates a model, he collects data, tests the fit of the model to the sample, and then he either rejects his model or fails to reject, and then he does not go for further modification of it of his model. He just accepts his failure or acceptance of the model fit. So that is why it is called strictly confirmatory. It's just confirming if the data is in line with the postulated model. And then is alternative methods. So in this, a researcher postulates several alternative models, and then he collects data and he tests each one of the model, and then he identifies and selects the best fitting model for his sample data. And third is model generating, in which he postulates a model and rejects his model. He modifies and re-estimates the model, goes for exploratory factor analysis, and then goes for CFA, and then locates the misfit in his model, and he does these iterations and tests for model fitness after each round of iteration, and then determines the model that better describes the sample data. So usually we researchers, we usually go for model generating method rather than just strictly confirmatory approach or alternative models, because researchers don't want to just waste their hard work of collecting so much of data. So they usually try to find the best model fit for their data. Now this is important, the role of theory in structural equation modeling. Structural equation modeling is a confirmatory rather than empirical results. It more concentrates on the theory underlying the study. So even the simplest structural equation models, it should be based on some theory. So theory is the foundation of structural equation modeling, because it's a confirmatory analysis. A theory-based approach to SEM is necessary because all relationships must be specified by the researcher before the SEM model can be estimated. And because we usually go for causal to identify the causal relationships in structural equation modeling. So causal involves hypothesized cause and effect. We check the fluctuation in one variable due to other variable. So it's a causal process which is dependent on a sequence. Whenever our model is based on causal process, there has to have a sequence in our variables, and that can be justified and that should be backed by a theory. For example, now here we are saying that adoption is dependent on perceived benefits, which in turn is dependent on awareness one has related EV, which in turn is dependent on the technology enthusiast, which means that how much enthusiastic our respondent is about technology. So here we are assuming, we are hypothesizing that our respondent will have EV awareness only if he is technology enthusiast. There might be many other reasons, but it depends on the theory, and we usually go for literature survey before making hypothesis, and then we test our hypothesis. So this is a causal process which works in a sequence, and that is why these arrows, influence arrows, are important. Now, how well does the model fit? Now, our structural equation model is the amalgamation, it is the it has multiple regression equations, not one regression equation. It is a simul-econometric model which tests simultaneously number of regression equations. In contrast to regression analysis or other dependence technique, SEM's statistical goal is to test a set of relationships representing multiple equations. Therefore, measure of fit or predictive accuracy for other techniques are not well suited for SEM. In traditional models, what we do is we directly go to check the significance or the association between two variables, like in logistic regression or other regressions. After we link our dependent and independent variables, we go and check the significance between various variables. But here we first need to check the model fitness. Only after we achieve our model fitness, then we can go and check the relationship or association between various variables. And structural equation modeling then gives us the direction and whether our relationship is positive or it is negative. So it is important to get a model fit before testing the association between two variables. So now there are various model fit measurement indices which we check before finalizing a model. Now there is one important difference that I want to talk about, is that when we are doing chi-square analysis, usually what we do is we want to check the significant difference. Only then we will say that there is a significant association between two variables. But in structural equation modeling, it's different. It's opposite actually. Here we want to accept a model if it is not statistically significant. That means if our p-value is greater than 0.05, then we accept our model. What that means is that it means that there is a significant difference. If p is 0.05, it means there is a significant difference between the actual theory or actual covariance matrix and estimated covariance matrix, observed covariance matrix and estimated covariance matrix. That means our theory and our model which is based on our data, and we do not want that. So that is why we do not want statistically significant because the chi-square measures the difference, statistically significant difference between the two matrices. So we do not want that. We want the estimated and observed covariance matrix to be almost similar to accept our model. So that is the main difference that is very interesting in structural equation modeling. And also we want our chi-square to value to be smaller. We want our p square to be greater, but we want our chi-square value to be smaller. So let's conclude this. So what we learned is that SEM handles measurement problems well, gives us the observed variables and unobserved variables, which is not possible in any other statistical approaches. It can incorporate multiple dependent variables in one model. It can incorporate observed and unobserved variables, can estimate both direct and indirect effects, and it is best suited for causal processes. That's it. I hope you understood.
So those are observed variables,
Yeah.
both dependent and independent.
Hmm.
Should be in the same scale when we are doing it.
Yes, it should be. See, the data for structural equation modeling, it can be discrete also, it can be continuous also, but it should be of same scale. For us, usually we go for example, 5-point Likert scale, but the scale should be same.
Say if I am using socio-demographic variables also
Hmm.
for the
That comes when you go for exploratory factor analysis first. In exploratory factor analysis, you don't put your dependent variable, you only put your independent variables, and those independent variables need to have the same scale. But when you go to test your hypothesis in structural equation modeling, where you are testing association between different latent variables, there you can use your socio-demographic and socio-economic factors. But for EFA, you have to have same measurement scale of items.
PFA is rotation, in orthogonal rotation. We say correlation among the items.
Yes. We assume that we permit our model to be uncorrelated. We assume that the latent factors that we got after EFA are independent of each other. They do not have any. This is to make. Usually we use Weiramax orthogonal rotation. So this is to interpret and get logical factors, so that we can interpret and name them very easily. So yeah, we assume so as to get better interpretation and logical interpretation, so that we can easily name our factors. Understood?
What will be the minimum sample size for running the SEM?
For running SEM, it is said that we can run SEM on 200 sample size also. This chi-square is sensitive to the sample size. So when sample size is greater, it will show greater value for the chi-square. So usually it is said that and in EFA there is this rule n by p ratio. That is the number of sample data we have got and the number of variables. So that should be between 1:3 and 20. In that ratio it has to be. So these are the conditions of the sample size.
Or factors which involve human input, for example, when we respond.
Mm-hmm.
For example, public transit use, you are trying to identify the constructs which influence public transit, maybe related to comfort or convenience or
Mm-hmm. Comfort and
and so
convenience.
on and so on. So
Yeah.
which rotation would you recommend? Like, should we go
It's when usually we go for Weiramax rotation, but Yeah, usually we go for principal. In EFA, we go for principal component analysis, and then we go for Varimax rotation. But it's dependent on, also dependent on, after you go for your EFA, then you get your correlation matrix, you get your factors, and then you decide which rotation is giving you the better interpretation. Sometimes you have to do it. But usually Varimax is preferred.
How the data can be adjusted for the reliability test? Because the reliability test for a data was answered, then our variables will be correlated.
I didn't get you.
Reliability data,
Yeah.
whether my data was reliable or not, how I can find it out? Because when the ending of this rotation, factor rotation and transfer.
No, it's not that. When EFA gives us the factors, so we have to see how reliable these factors are. So what we do is that we check the extent to which the underlying indicators or underlying variables are correlated with each other, and how much they are defining this particular construct. So that is why I said reliability is inversely proportional to measurement error. Measurement error, which tells us how much adequacy or inadequacy there is between observed variable and unobserved variable. So
Reliability, we are looking at the reliability of dependency between the variables, not really the reliability of the data that we have.
yeah.
That has to come through a more effective, serving method.
For that, we have to go for data imputation, different types of data imputations, a step-by-step process. So that is different. This reliability is to check the magnitude of the measurement error that we have in our sample model.
Can you explain this equation again? Observed regression coefficient equals to 2 structural coefficient.
See, yeah,
As far as
yeah. Where is it? Huh. So from regression or multiple regression, what it gives us is the observed regression coefficient. But I told that SEM gives us the true structural coefficient. Now, what is the advantage and disadvantage of this is that in regression overlooks the magnitude of measurement error, and that is why it gives us this observed regression coefficient, which usually is, because of the measurement error, it is less than the actual regression coefficient, which would have been there if there was no measurement error. So we do not correct for our measurement error in regression in other multivariate analysis, but this is the advantage in SEM, that what it does is it estimates the magnitude, how much magnitude of this measurement error is in our model, and then it corrects for it through this reliability. Let's say, for example, our reliability is 80%. And this is, for example, this is 2. Then what regression will give us? It will give us 1.6, which is actually less than the true one. So it can lead to serious inaccuracies. So in that case, structural equation modeling is more reliable because it corrects for the measurement error also. Come again, I didn't get your point.
So, using, if there are two highly correlated independent
See, that is why I told that when we have abstract constructs, we cannot represent it because it's a single construct. For example, let's say satisfaction, it's multi-dimensional, it has multiple meanings. So we cannot indicate it just by single items. So in that case, our model will be unidentified. That is why we use multiple items to define that construct.
Contrary to the concept of linear integration, where we try to avoid taking two correlated variables in the equation, here we are purposely trying to take correlated variables together because we are trying to explain a common factor out of strongly correlated sets of items or statements which we are collecting data to managing the variables. So here the idea is to bring them
Together.
correlated variables and put them as a single factor as a related. As compared to that, in linear regression, the idea is to avoid collinearity among two independent variables, and so we use variables which are not correlated.
And in regression, we cannot, in the first place, we cannot use our data which has a multicollinearity because it invalidates our assumption. So we cannot use that. So that also is the.
So sir, if you are constructing, you are combining two correlated variables, what if the third means another variable which is correlated to one of the variable in the construct, but it is not linked correlated to the result? You are combining both, so it will lose its single identity. It will become a single variable.
You're talking about cross-loading, like one particular variable can be cross-loaded on other factor also.
There are three variables, x1, x2, x3.
Huh?
x1 and x2 are daily correlated,
Uh-huh.
but x1 is not daily correlated to x3.
Yes.
Not really come as an answer.
Yes. So in that case,
So the
yeah.
the methodology actually takes care that you then take that factor into some other cluster
Factor.
where it
Yeah.
resembles more.
So if it is correlating, it has factor loading on some other factor also, then we just remove that from our model. As I told, it's a step-by-step process.
But let's clap for Ryan. I think she did a wonderful presentation. I also learned a lot today about SEO. So I'm sure all of you also did. I think for in the rest of the days, we will have some presentations where we'll show the application of the SEO and factor analysis as to how we answer some interesting research questions through qualitative data which, so especially those who are from planning, architecture, social science background, it could be interesting for you to gain from this because we deal a lot with the qualitative data in a lot of our psychological studies, behavioral studies. But then how do we quantitatively analyze them? Is what this kind of methodology helps us do that. So we'll take some interesting examples and case studies in next few days. She'll also take another presentation where we'll take some of our research case studies. I'll also take where we'll try to understand how these are used. Okay. So I think this. I hope we had a productive day and enjoy the evening. And we'll meet again. Start sharp at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, for first half, we'll be using the other room, the next room, because this room is required